So for me, at first I have to meditate, and then I feel some tingles in my body, and then suddenly there is no more weight. There is no weight. I'm elsewhere, and everything is vision that I have, but I don't have a body per se.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Your Superior Self. Tonight, we're going to be talking about synchronicities, winks from above. Liliane, thank you so much for taking the time.
It's an honor, Trey. Thank you for having me.
So there's a lot of synchronicities at play right now. We're both wearing blue shirts. It is, it's funny because you're in Charlottesville, right? And the Monroe Institute is near that location, and I absolutely adore Robert Monroe's work. We talked a little bit about that pre-show, and so I think there's a little bit of winking going on from the universe right now. What do you think?
I do believe so, and you probably will come earlier than you plan on coming.
Oh,
well,
really?
I know you have young children, but you'll find a way. You'll find a way. It's only 5 days.
Yeah, right. It's only 5 days. I don't know if my wife would be like, "Where are you right now? You need to come back right now."
Well, it could be a gift for you, a Christmas gift,
Yeah,
something very special.
sure. I read your book, Winks from Above, Opening to Signs and Synchronicities to Receive Little Miracles Each Day. And I absolutely loved it. It's the reader's favorite book award finalist, right? Sticker right on the front cover. I just cannot believe like the tapestry of experiences that you have collected over your life. I mean, obviously we all have a lot of experiences, but you have so many unique ones that happened to you personally. Why did you decide to write the book now?
Well, I decided, first of all, I wanted to share an amazing discovery I made during a traumatic period of my life. The discovery brought answers to many questions I had, and it gave me a clearer vision of the way I saw myself and my place in the universe. That's when I realized I'm not alone, and I was never alone. You see, my life had been an amazing journey during which I experienced deep pain, but also great joy. And most of my life, like many people, I had the impression that there was more to me than my physical body. We're going back to Monroe with that.
I've heard that before. Yeah,
yes.
Definitely.
But I never spent much time thinking about it and how or why things happened to me. Oftentimes people would say, "You're so lucky." But I would just shrug and say, "Oh, that was a coincidence," without knowing too well what it meant. I just said it. But then a few years ago, I experienced a life-threatening medical condition that caused me to slow down and think about all the terrible as well as exceptional things that occurred during my life. I found myself starting to reflect on all the events that led me to where I am now. So many stories came back to my mind from as far back as when I was a very young child. As I revisited them with my eyes, my mind, and my heart wide open, I started to make many changes in the way I approach life. I'm talking there about forgiveness, gratefulness, etc. Things I never really thought about, but certainly there are many things that I was doing without realizing that came very, very clear to me. And as I was reflecting on all these things coming to my mind and all the questions and the answers that came to me, there was a very important message that came through. And it's not only true for myself, but also for everyone else asking similar questions. I heard that I could not keep this to myself. I had to share this truth with others. And that's what led me to write Wings from Above.
So beautiful.
So that's how it started. Sometimes you need something hard, difficult, and then it breaks everything, and suddenly you realize you have to reassess your life. And because that was difficult, I had to reassess from the very beginning. I realized I was connected. There were so many things I was doing right. I just did not know, and I was sure that I missed a lot of other opportunities. Therefore, I went back, analyzed everything, and then I said, now I have to devise a plan to share with others so they too can do the same thing. It's available to everybody, not just me. I'm not special. It's just something that all of us have. We are born with it, and we lose it gradually. Children are very connected until they're about 6 years old, and then they start losing that connection because of education, mostly, or the society they live in, etc. But because of my life, because my childhood was very difficult, I was not allowed to talk to other children or play with other children. I was always alone, but I had nature. I had a good fortune to live in a house next to the beach on one side and the woods at the back. So I was always either on the beach or in the woods, and I was alone, but not really, because I had nature. I had all the animals coming. I had the dogs from the village come and play with me, cats as well, but also the birds and even the ants and anything crawly, creepy, anything was my friend. And I talked to the trees, I talked to anything that was in my surrounding. So that kept me in contact with spirit, the spirit guides, for instance, animal spirits, and I could hear and I could respond. And I never really lost that. When I was 9, I went to a boarding school near Paris, and I didn't have nature around me, a big park, but that was not nature. And I was always surrounded by other girls. So I had to find another way for my soul to be able to communicate. And art was available. So I started painting, I started playing the piano, reading a whole lot, writing, etc. And that in itself superimposed itself to nature. It was replacing in some ways what I was finding in nature as a child. And it was giving me what I was lacking at that point. And I would go to a museum later as a teenager, for instance, the Louvre. I would go every Sunday. It was free. And I would walk through the galleries, and a painting would attract my attention. So I would look and go inside the painting, or I was invited to come inside the painting. And then there were a lot of stories. I would go behind the trees, behind the mountains. So I never lost really that contact with the other side, with the other side of the veil. It was always there for me.
Speaking of nature, do you have a window open right now? Because I can hear, is that crickets and bullfrogs that I hear in Charlottesville?
It's a frog. I go and talk with them. I don't know what I say. I hope that it's not offensive, but I talk to them at night. They are so loud. People way down the street can hear them, and they are not any bigger than, let's say, my face like that.
I love that
they are
sound.
so small.
I love that sound, right? Like I love
Those
that
are
sound.
the tree frogs.
Tree
Those are the
frogs.
tree frogs, yes.
Wow.
And they're very, very small, but they're so loud.
Oh man, that is just so awesome. So you've seen signs your entire life.
I'm saying, yeah. Except, well, first when I was a young adult, there were so many things happening to me that were odd, but I couldn't talk to anybody at the time because it was not well, these type of things back in the 60s, you could not really talk about. I was afraid to sound very weird. That's what people would say. So I kept all that to myself. But there were so many things happening, almost all the time. But then what was happening is that inside, because of a very difficult childhood, I mean, if you read my book, and part of it was very painful. And I became very angry, but I hid it very well. And as long as I had nature or art, it would soothe me. I could find a balance. But then there were periods of my life where it was not possible and the anger was there. And I had to repress it. Then I had a child and I tried to be the perfect mother, perfect wife, but that anger was still there. And I was not in contact with my guides. I was becoming more and more depressed, but I was not accepting it. I was too strong for that. I mean, depression is for sissies, would I say? And until really it caught with me, and I had to go to a psychiatric clinic for about 2 months. But again, it was synchronicity. They put me in a clinic I never heard of before, nor since then. They treat patients via art. I had the choice to do painting, music, writing, and painting, music and painting, or writing. It was absolutely fantastic. So certainly I was able to reconnect with the child within, with the true me within. And it was fantastic because suddenly I was back. But for a while, I lost contact, or at least I thought I did. When I read my diaries, I know that I did not lose contact. I do lose contact because in my writing, there were still a lot of events showing me that there were signs, but I was not following or paying attention to them. But I would write things down. And obviously, my guides, my angels were still trying to guide me, but I was totally oblivious to any help I could get. So yes, we can lose contact, even though I was very contacted before. But I did not know all these things were, I couldn't put words on it. I was just doing it. It's later, much later, when I became a healer, that I understood what was happening. I started to learn about ascended masters, the guides, etc., put names on the different guides. So I started to understand better, but not 100%. It's after my last illness, the one that prompted me to write the book, that I became everything became so clear. And that's when I said, wait a minute, there are a lot of people out there who are like me, who feel there is more to them, to them, or they're very confused because they learn this and that. They're very confused, and they need some clarity. They need to understand how to be in contact, how to help themselves, and to by gaining that knowledge, it empowers them to make better choices in life and have a better life, a happier life. So that's my goal, just to help people and to do it in a way that is simple, because I don't see things in a very complicated way. My guides are right here. I talk to them like if they were good friends.
So you can see your guides right now?
No, I don't. I feel.
You feel them?
I feel I hear them sometimes.
What is that called? Like out of the clairs?
Clairaudience.
Yeah.
Clairaudience. But yeah, I hear them.
Do you hear like a separate voice, or is it like a thought?
Sometimes you don't know. I mean, when I was writing my book, for instance, I asked for help because I was getting memories back of some events that occurred in my childhood, but I wanted to be very accurate, not embellish, not make it worse. I wanted to have a good vision again of what happened. And so I would wake up at between 3 and 3:30 in the morning. It was a good time for me to write. So I have a special chair, I'm ready to write, and I write in the dark, typically. I put my thumb like that on my little piece of paper, and then I start writing, and I move my thumb, and I continue and move my thumb. And the next day, maybe I have 6 lines, but at least I can read what I wrote, and that those 6 lines might give me 100 words or 200 words because I remember what was written. So I connected with my guides at that point, and then I could hear one or several come. I could hear them, but it's not with my ears, it's my inner ears. Mm-hmm. And then I knew what to write. And sometimes it came so fast that I couldn't write everything. So that's how I did communicate with them. It's something you can't really explain, but it's very clear. Once you're in touch with your guides, it becomes very clear.
Do you think your guides show up in this reality, like to help you out? Like in physical form, right? There were some chapters in your book where you had like some rando people, like a taxi driver, like talking about the universe, right?
That one in Paris, oh my God, I still remember because it seems so unreal. And he was driving, but he was looking at me through the mirror. And I was, there is a lot of traffic. I was a bit concerned, but at the same time, there was so much calm in the taxi. And he spoke with a voice that was not the voice I expected. It was a beautiful voice, but the words were very well chosen. And he spoke of a topic that I had been studying the whole weekend. And it was very, very strange for a taxi driver to be that way. And he looked very, very old. But when he picked up my suitcase, it was like he was moving like a young man. So all that was, but what was very, very strange is when we arrived at the train station, where that was my destination, he got out of the taxi, shook my hand, looked at me in the eyes, took actually my hand with two of his two hands, looked at me in the eyes and said, "We'll meet again." And I was, oh my God. This was so strange,
Have you met him again?
Well, it's interesting because I met several other men. I said, yeah, they were always men, very old, and they were always very dapper, either in a dark suit or a couple of them were in a white suit, a little bit like the older gentleman in South America, a linen suit, very well dressed, even one had a white hat. I mean, it was very strange because I looked at one and the other, I said, there is similarity. So I don't know, I will never know, but they came at a time when I needed to understand something. Or one time, like in Italy, as I expressed, I might have been in danger, and that man took my hand, my elbow, and guided me away from the area where he said it was dangerous. And then poof, it was gone. I never had time to say goodbye.
When you were in the jungle, right? Speaking to that experience, did you ever experience any like plant medicines or anything with altered states of consciousness?
No, we did not do that. That seems to be something that is in fashion now. People go down there. I belonged in France to the Explorer Society, the French Explorer Society. That's how I was trained by the old style explorer.
Yeah, they weren't doing plant medicine back then. I don't think. I said I doubt that they were experimenting with plant medicines.
No, they were not. And I have seen that. I've seen the Indian use it for a special occasion. It was not offered to women, first of all, only to men. They had they had two types. One is Nakorana, that they make a powder, they put it inside a bamboo, and then they blow it into the nose of another Indian, and then it goes straight into the sinus cavity. And for about 2 hours, they are stoned, basically. There is another one that they use bananas that they mash, and they have a trunk, half a trunk, and they empty the center, so it becomes like a large vessel. And then they mash the bananas, and after a certain length of time, the bananas, they don't rot, but they macerate, and it becomes almost like an alcohol. It's something very strange. And then that's where they put the ashes of the deceased, because they are the Indians I lived with were endo-cannibalist, which means when a person dies, they will burn the remains. First, the flesh is, they put the body in a tree, so the flesh is eaten. After about 3 weeks, the body comes down. There is basically only the bones. They burn the bones, make a powder, keep the powder, and then during a celebration, they will put that powder mixed with the banana macerated and share with other members of some other tribes. That's how they share the spirit of that person. It's very beautiful when you think of that.
Sure, but like someone like you going down there, right? Like you grew up in France and you had very limited exposure to people, let alone different cultures, but you go down to experience this. What is going through your mind when you see this?
Well, I had to study before, I had to be prepared. We had to be almost a commando type preparation, because you don't walk in the... Nowadays, you see people going in the jungle for 3 days, or they go with a team. We're just two, which means if something happens, you're it. So we had to prepare ourselves psychologically. We had a medal with our names, passport, in case our bones were found, and they didn't know who we were. So we were ready. It was very different. We lived naked like they were. We went with very, very little. We ate like they did, because our point was not to bring our culture to them. It was to learn from their culture. We're studying plants. So if you go and you bring all your accessories, everything, you disturb, and they observe you rather than you observe them. So our point was to observe them and learn as much as possible, so we could bring plants and anything that we came across that was used, and we believe that they use it in a magical way, but we believe that maybe it could be used for us to make medication. So we brought as much as possible back to France to a lab to be studied.
Well, I do have a question regarding this, right? Like, so in Australia, in the outback, with the Aborigine culture, they believe that this is a dream, right? Like, this is not the ultimate reality. Did those individuals where you studied, did they have that same philosophy?
Well, they have a double. Their double is on the moon.
Really?
Yes.
They're double.
They have
explain that. Explain that.
Well, it's a bit fuzzy right now. They have that's why they need the drug. When they are stoned, they communicate with their double. I remember that they were afterwards they were telling us how wonderful it was. They were able to communicate, etc. So it's I don't think it's like the Aborigines in Australia. No, I think it is different. I don't know enough of the
Well, what
Aborigine.
about you now, right? Like your experiences to this point, right? All your out of body. Well, have you had out of body experiences at the Monroe
Or
Institute?
before, that's why, and I did not know what to do with that. I mean, it was spontaneous, and I was. I remember one time I was up in the ceiling looking down at my head, the top of my head, wondering what I was doing there. So oftentimes I had things like that happen, but I could not understand why it did happen at the time. So by going to the Monroe Institute was fantastic because I took a course with William Bullman,
Hmm.
and I was then able to understand what was going on, maybe even analyze sometimes why I was in that position. Why? I mean, there was a reason, but I could not understand before. And be able to stay and ask more questions so you can see clearer. Because before that, sometimes I would ask a question and puff, I was back back on Earth. Now that I've learned and I can ask a question, there are certain questions you ask a certain way, and you can still stay in that alternate state and have a better vision or understanding of what you're watching or why you had an out of body experience right there. It's like the first time I met my mother, and it's in my book. In the evening, she would talk a lot about um, her life. I had left her when I was 15 months old because of the war in Vietnam, and I saw her again when I was 48. So, and I thought that she had died. So it was a great surprise when I first met her. And at night, she would talk a lot about her life, and I was fascinated because that was something I had no clue. So the person who gave me birth was telling me about her life, gave me a lot about myself, of things I did not understand. And every night, starting the first night, we sat at a table facing each other. But I was at the back of the room, looking at my back, looking at my mother, and I could see my head nodding, and I could not understand why. And it's later on I asked my guides, and it's simply because there was so much for me to absorb. It's not something easy when after decades you meet the person who gave you birth and you thought that she had died. It was to give me some room to get used to the new situation. If I had been so much involved, it would have been one thing, but I was more like a spectator and I had no feeling. I was just watching, which was very strange. But I understood later, and that was good. It was to protect myself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, wow, that's so powerful, right? Like the metaphor of that experience, right? Just, it's funny you say that, right? Like metaphors, how things happen in our reality, like physical reality that can be metaphors in our lives, right? Like I just recently, like a month ago, maybe it was 2 months ago, like my refrigerator, um the freezer wasn't cool, right? Like the coolant, the chemical that keeps it cool, like we had a leak, a freon leak, and everything in the freezer got warm and things melted.
Mhm.
And we had to basically put everything in the garage refrigerator so that we, and repair that.
With
Uh,
3 kids.
yes. And it took like a month to fix, and it's a long story. But when I asked in meditation, like, what was that for? Right? Like, why did I create that in my reality? And I just heard a laugh, and and this quick little bit of information. It was like, because you've been losing your cool. I'm like, okay, yeah, touche, touche. Right? Like, because I have been experiencing some, just some stress, and during that time, I'm going back to school for psychology, and work was hectic, and I might have, in kids, right? Like there are some times and moments where I probably wasn't the most patient, and like to show me like metaphorically and physically in this reality, like we lost our freezer went up, right? And everything in it like got warm. We had to throw everything out. And like the message was, it's because you're losing your cool. So like now I look at things like, okay, thank you. Touche.
They have a great sense of humor. I have seen that a few times, and I was so angry at first of hearing what I heard. And then afterwards, now I laugh about it. But like you, at first, it must have been a bit.
But I'm stunned that that's the answer, right? Like
Yeah.
I personally would never have come up with that, right? Like I would never, why did this happen to me? Oh, because you lose your cool. I'm like, oh, okay. Like it's crazy.
But,
Have you
but
had like since that one out of body, like going to the Monroe Institute, have you been able to have more out of body experiences?
oh yeah, but I had so many, but I could not explain. Now with the Monroe Institute, I did some funny things, and now my husband is careful. At the Monroe Institute, I said, okay, my husband is in Italy right now. I'm going to see what he's doing.
And so you go see him in Italy, right?
So suddenly I was in a room. I could see the room very clearly. And he was seated on one side of a large table. It was like a conference table, but there was a desk here. There was a door here, and there were people passing. But he was seated in front of two people, and they were discussing. Couldn't hear what they said, they were just discussing. But I could see the room. And the weird thing is that I sensed there was a plane, or rather a helicopter in the room. But after, when I came back, I wrote everything down because we always have to do that. So later I called my husband and said, were you at a conference today? Yeah, I was. I said, describe the room. And it was exactly. And I said, were there people moving and going from one door to the other, passing behind you? Yes, there were. And you were seated in front of two people. Yeah. But I said, the weird thing is that I could sense there was a plane or maybe a helicopter in the room. He said, the guy I was talking to across the way is a helicopter pilot. And on the table in front of us, there was a mini helicopter.
Wow. Wow.
So my husband said, no, I can't do anything.
Can you go out of body like any day, any time that you want? Does it have to be at the Monroe Institute?
No. Before it happened anytime. I mean, it could, sometimes it's when I touch an object and suppose. And my husband, we were in Chartres. You probably heard of the Chartres. It's a beautiful Gothic cathedral in France. And supposedly there is the veil of the Virgin Mary that is kept in a glass box. I mean, and the whole thing is like an altar, and then you have a gate in front, metallic gate, so you can't go close to it. And I held the bars to look, and suddenly I was gone. It happened that way. My husband was with me, and he knows my look because I look funny. And it lasts maybe 2 minutes, 3 at the most. And as soon as I held those two bars, it was very strange. I felt like I was, there is a mountain with like an opening, but it's long. I was like in a tunnel, but that side is not. That side is not in the mountain. I mean, it's like it's difficult to explain. Or a river that is slightly covered. Anyway, I was going very, very fast. I mean, head first that way into water. It was sort of dark, very unpleasant, and at great speed. And suddenly, I arrived in an area like suspended, and I could see the sea, I could see the coast, I could see below, and I could see the vegetation, but I could see maybe some reddish dirt, so maybe laterite. Underneath, I couldn't see any people. And it was so peaceful, the sun, blue sky. And I was in suspension for a while. I have no clue. That was before I did the Monroe Institute. I have no clue what it was. The only thing I can figure out is that it could be in the southern part of Turkey, because supposedly she came to that area. And it could look that way. I mean, the sea was, that's the only thing I can imagine, but it was obviously related to the veil. So did I see that she actually came as the story tells us? I don't know. At that time, I did not have enough knowledge, but these are the type of things that would happen to me. And I was very, very, very strange. But after the Monroe Institute, then I was able to analyze like I did for my husband.
What do you experience like when you're in out of body states? What does that feel like, and what is it like? Is it like meditation and using your imagination, or is it like, are you actually in that space? You know what I mean?
You're in that space, you don't think anymore. You're elsewhere. At first, you have to put yourself in the right mode, the right position. For me, it's very easy because I have no fear. If you have fear, I know that people at the Monroe Institute who started were very afraid because you're thrust into the void, basically. And there is always that fear. For me, it's more like, woo, any which way, yabby dabby doo. It's fun. So for me, at first I have to meditate, and then I feel some tingles in my body, and then suddenly there is no more weight. There is no weight. I'm elsewhere, and everything is vision that I have, but I don't have a body per se.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And it's very peaceful. I mean, I never had anything that was, except that one time when I was propelled into, I don't know where, maybe Turkey. But other than that, it's fun, I would say. It's a lot of fun.
Can you go? Go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
One time, it's in my book, we were in Austria with my husband, and we entered a very, very old church. It's an old, small town, and a very old church. And you had some benches. So I put my hands on the bench, and suddenly I was in the ceiling. That was before Monroe Institute. I was up there looking down. I could see my head. My husband said, I said, what am I doing here? You know, I mean, that's nice, but... And then I came back down, and my husband again saw my face, said, you are traveling. I said, yeah. He said, I really wish I would be able to do that. So I said, oh, okay, let's try something new. So I grabbed this, touch the back of the bench, and I felt that we were lifted. He did feel it too. I mean, not as high, but I could feel that. So there is so much more to learn than what I know, because that was an experiment. It was spontaneous, but there is probably possibilities right there too. So it's fun.
That's awesome. So did you finally become a healer?
Yes, it took me decades to say yes. It took me decades. I was afraid. Not that I did not believe in it, but my grandmother, who was rather mean to me, I suspect had the talent, but I'm almost certain she was using it the wrong way. And I describe a few examples that she was more like a witch or something like that. There was something very wrong, and I was afraid to have that. So for that reason, I was staying away from all these things. I was very afraid that I was like her. And I had a healer who I would see at least once a year. who very early on, I might have been in my 20s, told me, you should do the same thing as I do. And I thanked him. I thought it was nice, but said, no, no way. And I saw him every year, and each time he would say the same thing, even tested me. And then I was in Korea, and I had the opportunity to go to the mountain with a lady who I was dancing with her. She asked me, she was a choreographer, and she said, oh, why don't you come and train with my dance company? So I did, and they left for 1 week to the mountain. They invited me, but my son was very young at the time, and I said, no, I can't go. What she did, actually, she was a shaman. I did not know that. She took the company to dance in the forest and contact the spirit of nature. Darn it. I wish I would have gone. But, sometimes you don't do the right choice. Then about maybe 11 years later, I was again in Korea and still very interested in shamanism. And so I took a course at the university, and I was invited to participate to a rite, shamanic rite, that lasted 3 days, I think. And one of the young shaman assistants spoke very well English, and she was very interested to get to know me more and do things with me, maybe. And at the time, I was finishing a degree at the university, and also had my son. So I let it go, and I said, you would learn so much more with a shaman than you're trying to learn in book at the university, But again, and then the third time, finally, that's when I became so sick. Lungs, other problems, and the doctors could not find out what was wrong with me. So finally, they tried to give me medication, nothing would work. Finally, I was able to go see my healer back in France. And in 5 days, I was back, but he said, you know what? And then I understood I had to say yes this time. So I did. But a month or 6 weeks later, I was in the States visiting. And I was starting to say, well, that's nice, healing, but yeah, maybe not. I was, I'd promised, and a friend wanted to take me around the Great Lake because for Christmas they are nicely decorated. There are some towns that are decorated, transformed into Dickens villages. So she said, let's go. Well, snowstorm. So she said, let's go see somebody who reads tarot cards. Okay, nearby. As soon as I saw him, he said, we met already. And I said, maybe in another lifetime. And then she had 1 hour reading. I had 1 hour reading. He said, you sit here, to my friend, you sit here. He sat in his chair, and for almost 2 hours, he had a download, and he was telling me my entire life.
Wow.
Things I almost forgot, And then he said, you've been contacted for the 3rd time, and you can't say no this time. He was speaking through whatever voice. He said, you've been contacted when you were 39 and 49, something like that. And he said, this time, you said yes, but don't fail. That's very strange, because my friend did not know that. Nobody knew, it was just something very new for me. So yeah, that's when I said, okay, I'll do it. So that's how I did it. But it was not something that, I want to do it. It was, come on, do it.
So how do you heal? Like, what is your modality? Like, how do you do that?
I use energy, a bit like Reiki, but I don't have all the protocol. I learned quite a few techniques, but I don't have to pray to somebody and somebody else, etc. It's a lot. I work a lot on intuition. So a person will come. I don't know right away what I'm going to use, depending on what the person has. Because I also use color, chromotherapy. I use different techniques that I have added. So it all depends. But I do feel the person at first, assess what the person needs. And sometimes a person doesn't need a whole lot. I mean, it's not just physical. I have to work at another level. And once the talk is done, I put the person on the table because the person would wonder why not. But basically it's done because sometimes if you push the person in the right way, I'm not guiding the person. I let the person talk and find a solution. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that will unblock some difficulty, some pain, some aches, etc. So it all depends. I've done things such as my husband, who was supposed to have a surgery on his foot. He never had that surgery, and that was many, many years ago. I mean, yeah, I do a lot at different levels. It all depends what it needs, but I don't use. Here in the States, people need a name because I was asked, "What technique do you use?" And at first, it's a traditional technique that we use in France, and typically you learn that from maybe a parent or somebody who chose you, etc. You don't really have a name; it's you use magnetism. So I studied Reiki here and became a master teacher just so I can say what I do is a little bit like Reiki, but I also have the Reiki certificate, so I can also do that.
Has this strengthened your intuition to where like you can experience the other side of the veil in different different ways? Like now your healing has strengthened that intuition to open you up to more communication with your guides, to ascended masters, to help not just heal them physically, but also maybe spiritually.
Yes, yes, definitely. Because when I work, I am in connection with my guides. I'm just a little conduit. That's how I see myself. I'm just, so I connect with my guide. I ask for guidance. I connect with a person. And then I'm the conduit. So whatever comes through me. So to say I'm a healer is a big word. We're three. There is the guide, the inspiration, and then there is me, and then there is the person who needs it. So just transmitting. I'm relaying, basically. So yes, it has. I work with them a lot. There are cases that are a little bit difficult. I need a bit more help. Or simply sometimes if I'm very tired, I'm not quite as sensitized. So I ask, I need a hand between, I need
a hand with my
hand
hand
and that body here, please. Or, I ask for guidance and typically it comes, which is really amazing.
Mm-hmm. Do you help them? Do you connect, right? And maybe sometimes say things to people that they need to hear in that moment, right? Like maybe life advice, or do you have sessions with people where it's not just physical healing, but emotional, life coaching, anything like that?
Yes, I do. I do have that, but I'm very careful because I'm not certified as a life coach also. But there are things I do because I can feel the energy where it lacks, where it's low. And then it gives me sometimes I can see a little bit into the psyche of the person. But I'm very, very careful because I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not trained in all that. So here in the States, I have to be very careful. But I'm trained in these things as well. And in Europe, that's fairly common. Sometimes I I have people talk and find the solution themselves. I just push them. And, I just listen and push, 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 push. And sometimes that's just what the person needs, because oftentimes people have their own answer. It's already there, but they need somebody who guide them to, to their own answer. So I do it that way, but it all depends, I just have to feel, and sometimes I sit in front of the person and I just feel the pain. There is another technique. It's a very ancient technique that I use. It's through the eyes. I don't use that very often, but it is a possibility. Shaman use that. You're very close to the person, and then you look into the eye of the person, and you penetrate the person. And sometimes it's extremely painful what I get, because I get the pain of the person right here. But then what I do, I transmute it, clean it, send it back. And I remember some people crying when it comes back. And I hear, I just feel, I'm crying. I'm not angry or anything, or sad. I just feel relief. Suddenly, I don't feel the heaviness or something like that, So it's nice. It's something that somebody asked me to do that. I had no clue what I was doing. And as a shaman I was studying with later, and he said, well, this is a technique that shaman use. And I said, can you teach me? He said, no, you do it. I said, but he said, I don't want to teach it normally because it's dangerous. And I said, how? He said, because when you absorb the pain, it could be an illness as well, and you can't transform it and send it back clean, you keep it. And that's why it's dangerous. So I don't know. I mean, that's something I've done spontaneously. And wow. But we all have so many, but all of us have a lot of capabilities. It's just that we don't accept it.
Sure.
For many reasons. We don't believe in ourselves, or we are told that this is very wrong, or this is bogus, or whatever. There are so many reasons out there for people not to believe in these things, or believe in themselves. But everybody has that. If they want to learn, it's there. Some will be more talented than others, but everybody can learn at least some of the techniques.
How do you teach people to have a deeper connection with their guides and to see the synchronicities and the winks from the universe?
There are a lot of exercises I give in my book, and simple exercises, because again, I don't believe that it has to be complicated. For instance, a walk in the forest, but you're very mindful, you are in the moment. And everything you see, everything you hear it with clarity. So instead of going through the forest thinking of what you're going to do later or putting music, you just go and commune with nature, and then little signs might appear, things you don't see normally, because you're very attuned, your all senses are open. So when you are in the moment, meditation is a very good thing too. To be very grateful is also extremely good. To like every morning to do with meditation, do gratitude, or even before going to bed. That's also a good thing. Gratitude for, it's always good. I love to dance, and I give some simple things to do. I mean, I was a dancer, but what I explain, you don't have to be a dancer. You could even start seated, because some people can maybe not move too well. So you can be seated. You can listen to the sound of music. It would be the wind, the rain. It could be the birds, a little river, the sea. And as you're seated, maybe there is a rhythm. There is something that makes you want to, maybe the hand at first. And then the hand might your arm won't. And then suddenly you're up and you move. Or you put music in and you just follow and you let the music go through you. And whatever comes out of it, it's fun too. So that's something also, because it's nice to have the body get involved as well. But there are so many
Sure.
things, and I describe in my book all the little things that can be done. Work on trying to change the mind from negative to positive. There are always things happening to us that are less than desirable. Try to see the silver lining. If you look carefully, there is always something that is desirable, and okay, the bad part will fade, but is there something you can keep, or where did it lead you, etc. So try to change, the attitude, etc. But I mean, yeah, it's in my book, it's all listed, and I think it's I make it very, very simple because it is simple. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Sure.
And also, I talk of the blocks. Those are important to work on, because the blocks what will prevent you from communicating with the other side, on the other side of the veil. Hatred, anger, of course, depression, jealousy, all these things build like a thick cloud around you, gray cloud, and then you can't see through. You're in a world that is so painful to be in, and you can't see beyond that. You can't see through it. You can't see on the other side of the veil. So that's also, those are things to work on, but each individual is different, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, speaking to your experience here, right, this rich experience that you call life, that all the events have unfolded for you, do you feel like you've created this, or do you feel like fate had a lot to do with your story? And I guess that's the paradox between
I think when we come on Earth, we have a role to play, all of us. The role might be different. We come with certain talents, abilities that others may not have. And those should be used to help others. We're not here just for ourselves, just for the fun of being on Earth, but we're here to help ourselves, to bring humanity further. And as long as we don't understand that, and I'm glad that I had that illness that showed me the way and helped me to see my life as a preparation to what I'm doing now. Because with all the different experiences that I had, I can put things together, or the very painful time that I had helped me to understand people, when they go through trauma, and so, because I've been there. So my life has been, everything I've experienced was necessary. It was not wasted. It was just a step to ascend a little bit higher and higher, to a point where, okay, now I'm going to write a book and I'm going to try to help people. I'm preparing classes right now. End of the year, probably a 6 to 8 week seminar once a week. And right now I have a class that people who read my book asked me to teach. So I started a class for them. So it's, and then many other things that I plan on doing. I also plan on writing a book. Parents asked me or suggested that I write a book similar to, or take actually passages or the spirit of Wings from Above, but adapted for children, to keep them in touch with their own guides and spirits. So I'm thinking about that, different ages, and some other parents asked me, suggested that I write also for teenagers. So that would be more like a novel or something with hero, heroine, etc. But use the signs and synchronicities and build it into fairy tales for the little kids. Something fun, and at the same time that allow them to know that they're not crazy if they think that way. It's
Sure. I love that idea. I think that's great. Having three kids of my own, I think it's important to have this type of literature out for the younger generation, so that way they don't get too conditioned right into that analytical brain.
yeah.
But Liliane, this has been fabulous. Like I love every second of this conversation. How can people find out more about you and how can they connect?
Well, they can go on my website, which is www.wingsfromabove.com, or they can go on Amazon and look for my book, Wings from Above by Lillian Fortner. And it's on Kindle, it's on paperback, and it's on Audible as well. I have the audio version as well. So,
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing.
well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight.